Whilst we're with North London, we'll bring Harry Harris back in, ESPN's football correspondent, and we are a bit Arsenal heavy at the minute, but they are a big story. And I know that with some of the other transfer chat that you've been keeping your eye on, Harry, Ganso to Arsenal. What's this one all about?
Yes, we're running with that story, breaking news tonight on ESPN, that Ganso is being sold. His club Santos can't negotiate a new contract with him. I should imagine there's a number of scouts were up there the other night watching Brazil play GB. Many of them were watching Ganso. What we're saying is that 3 Premiership clubs have made bids for him. One of them is Arsenal. Manchester United are looking very closely, as we all know, at one particular Brazilian who's valued at over 30-40 million pounds. That particular one, we all know about third-party ownership. We've gone through all of that before. He owns 20% of his transfer fee, and that goes up to 30% on August the 1st. Ganso is a much more affordable option for the Premiership clubs. He has a €50 million buyout clause, but of course they're going to have to take much less than that because his contract is expiring and he's refusing to sign a new one. And Arsenal are very much keen on this point.
Who's the most likely suitor, do you think, for Ganso out of those 3 then, Harry?
Well, I think I've heard you debating it quite rightly so, that Manchester United urgently need a dynamic midfield player. And of course, he would fit the bill. But, 2 years ago, Ganso was on par with Neymar. The 2 of them were exceptionally young, gifted players coming through in the Brazilian national side. But Ganso had a serious injury which set him back quite considerably for the best part of a year. So I think people are looking at him very closely this Olympics to see just how much he has come back from that. And if he can realise that potential, well, it's only 22 now, but if he can realise that potential everyone saw a couple of years ago, then I think he'll be snapped up at the kind of price that he's now available at.
If you look at the other South American that you kind of touched upon there, and Moura, who the £29 million story with Manchester United, and again you talk about the third-party ownership. You don't see that one actually coming to fruition then?
Well, by August the 1st, you're looking at £50 million. That's the problem you've got. He owns 30% of that transfer fee. Come August the 1st, he owns 20% presently, and his club want to realise the fee that you've been talking about. That's what they want. So all the extras on top of that, the commissions, the third-party ownership, the amount of money that's involved in this is astronomical. You talk about Manchester United and who they're going to purchase. It's been a long time since they purchased £30 million player in Berbatov and Rio Ferdinand. Their owners are going to New York to the stock exchange to raise quite considerable sums of money to help them pay off some of the leverage that they use to buy the club. Now, Manchester United are a model of a club globally in the enormous amounts of money they make in profits. Their commercial enterprises are second to none in the world. But of course, they were highly leveraged and have to pay an enormous amount, £80 million a year, in interest rates. So that prohibits their transfer spending quite considerably, and hence the reason why they've been so low for Van Persie.
If we're looking elsewhere as well, I mean, the plenty of stories, of course, in silly season doing the rounds in terms of players coming here and there. And if we rattle through a few of them, and Kolo Touré set to leave Man City, Joe Allen to Liverpool, Lewandowski to United or Chelsea. Any with particular strength, credibility?
Well, all of them, but Manchester City, I mean, it was said to me a year ago that they could lose £1 billion in the amount of money they've invested in players that they can't actually, many of them, get rid of. Because you look at Touré and Rocky Santa Cruz and Joe before him, and many players that they'd like to sell, they're on such enormous salaries. There are very few clubs around the world that would take those kind of commitments on. And Manchester City now, to manoeuvre themselves into position in the financial fair play league, they've really got to try and offload these players rather than loan them and part pay for their salaries. And this is the difficulty part that they're going to go ahead with Touré, for example. So I would say, on balance, the chances of him going are remote. He'd rather sit on that contract he's got at Manchester City. I think Joe Allen is an intriguing one for me because when Brendan Rodgers left Swansea, he left with a player protection clause in a contract that was signed. Now, whether that is enforceable is a very interesting issue for me, because I'm not so sure it would be, because I don't know any rules that are governed by the Premier League or the FA that allow for these kind of agreements. But it exists at the moment, a player protection clause. Now, it means they can't sell to Brendan Rodgers unless Swansea accept a bid from another club, and it would be tested if the player asked for a transfer. But I can't see Swansea wanting not to accept something like 10 to 15 million pounds for Joe Allen. Now, can Liverpool actually afford 15 million pounds? I'm not so sure their budget's going to stretch to that. They've already bought a couple of players that might want to buy one or two more. They were probably hoping to get him for less than 10 million pounds. But it's certainly a player that Brendan Rodgers has worked with and likes and works within his structure. So I think that's an intriguing one to watch very carefully.
We managed to talk about Liverpool, Joe Allen. Didn't even mention Andy Carroll. And we'll leave it there for now, Harry, I think, because that's another one that there could be plenty of interest. I mean, from what Harry's saying there, Joe Allen, and that's a slightly tricky situation, but really, money will talk in any situation like that, won't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think Brendan Rodgers needs to kind of strengthen the team and bring in the players that can really fill his philosophy and get the team playing the way that he sees it and wants it. And I do think that Swansea will find it difficult, I think, to turn down serious money. Listen, I think that Brendan Rodgers left Swansea on good terms, good relationship, a relationship that could see him pick up the phone, have a chat and see whether a deal could be done. And then it's done, isn't it?